Gila on a run.
Say the thing. We're live. That's your line.
Greetings. There we are.
Yeah, you always say, and we're live.
We're live.
Okay. I don't want to steal that from you, Andrew. We all have our rules in this world. And always prep. And I'll take your line that we'll wait a second for people to come on. Sorry that I'm an hour late today. Mr. Andrew Fox is a very, very popular man. And everyone wants a piece of him. I only get this piece of him, but the rest of the world gets the other pieces. Andrew, what were you doing this morning?
They got a shirt and a jacket, mate. You just get the Villa shirt. I was all fancy for it was for GB News. Talking about my latest paper about cash voucher assistance and how we're basically putting money straight into the pockets of Hamas, which is good because I'm glad that my taxes go to such a work.
In GB News, like on the BBC end, is it more on the like Sky News Australia end, neutral?
Yeah, it's it's like Reform Party TV, so it's probably more to the right of me, if I'm honest. But
okay. I'm to the right of you too, and you still like me, I think.
Hey, as long as someone's not an extremist, I don't care. It's fine.
Oh, I've been called worse. Anyway, maybe we should get this party started. Welcome to... Okay. And take two. Welcome to the Paratrooper and a Yogi Walk Into a Bar podcast. I just walked into this bar, and there he is, the righteous researcher himself, Andrew Fox, co-host of the Brink Podcast, and Mr. Andrew Fox here on Substack and on X.
And of course, there's Shana Meyerson, who is fresh from her morning exercises.
How could you tell?
Working out in the gym, getting hench, getting stacked, bending herself into a pretzel in honor of her Yoga of War podcast, which you can find on YouTube. And of course, she's on here. She's put out some great articles recently, so do subscribe to Shana on Substack. As soon as this is over, that's my one request to you tonight. I do have one for you, though. I do have one. Hang on.
Give it.
So before you go off, you may remember a few weeks ago we had Dr. Orly Petter on the show. Yep. She's a neuropsychologist from LA who's now out in Israel, giving vital, life-saving, cutting-edge PTSD treatment to not only IDF soldiers and 7th of October survivors and former hostages, but also Palestinians as well. You know, she's basically gave up her day job on 7th of October and is, not paying herself a salary, just working for charity solidly for nearly 2.5 years. And she's now out in Israel for 12 months. But she's had a bit of a drama in that the firm that was handling the charity's finances has been, it's a company that handled like billions of dollars a year, hundreds of charities. They've been suspended by the FBI for fraud stuff. And unfortunately, all the charity's money is currently locked in that account, and they're now in a line in a queue waiting to get their money. So they're on a bit of a shortfall of cash right now, and they're looking for about $15,000 just to keep the project going until the money's unfrozen. So if you are in a charitable mood, it's www.israelhealinginitiative.org. If you have any money to spend, I know it's the run up to Christmas and finances are tight for all concerned. But if you do have anything going spare, then please do drop $1 or $2 over to Orly to keep that vital life-saving work going. So I just wanted to get that in there right at the start. Thank you very much. Shana, over to you.
Wow, that's amazing. I got an email from Yasmin Mohammed. It must be the same platform. That is just so sad. Do we know what even happened? Are they stealing money? Are they embezzling funds?
No, not seen. I don't think the FBI released those kinds of details, but apparently their offices were jumped into, and now the whole thing's on a shutdown, which is a real pain for all those charities.
Yeah. Wow.
Who are completely innocent bystanders in all this, caught up in it. So if you can, and thank you so much,
Sarah.
Online, you're a legend. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So that's my charity appeal. It is Christmas. It is a season for
so
if you can. So.
Yes, and Andrew, back to our fun of last week. Now we're getting a message saying no audio. Can anybody else? I mean, we're getting hearts. I'm assuming other people are hearing us. Is there anybody else having a problem with the audio? There is audio. Okay, thank you, Sarah. We're going to get on with the show. Okay. This seems to be an ongoing thing. Andrew, I have honestly decided that God has put a curse on my AV every show. And now that I've done like about between you and Yoga of War, somewhere in the vicinity of 130 shows, every single one of them has some AV issue. It's amazing. So it's just something we're going to have to live with. I'm happy to be smiling this week. It's sad that how quickly, again, as we talked about before, how quickly, God, Andrew, I hate to call it the news cycle. Let's call it the emotional cycle. Let's call it the everything cycle. But everything has become so overwhelming. It feels like everything right now, everything is a watershed. And it hits, and then it's like, I don't know if it's bracing for what's next or recovering from what just happened, but it's just been, I don't know, a week ago there, I couldn't smile. Today, I actually, it's like you process. It's so overwhelming. And there's this, I feel like there's this resilience that's being built within all of us that is both good and bad, because sometimes I think that sitting within the feelings, no matter how intense, no matter how unpleasant, it really helps us to move forward and make the profound changes that we need to make within ourselves and also externally towards the world around us. So I just God, sometimes I just feel bad smiling anymore. And I just want to say that I'm still heartbroken and angry and all the things about Bondi, and will be, but I don't know. These breaths that come every once in a while, I feel are unearned in a lot of ways. So thank you, Sarah.
This is your weekly therapy session anyway.
Yeah. It actually is. And Andrew, every time I look at you, your bright and smiling face just brings joy to my heart. So that being said, let's start off by talking about Syria today. I'll start off with just one point. There's so many points to be made right now. But as hopefully we all know, and again, like, talk about news cycle, right? 3 Americans killed in Syria last Friday or Saturday, 2 servicemen and an interpreter. And, within a day, we've got Bondi. That's old news. Nobody's talking about Rangavili anymore. Like, everybody is like, okay, let's all move over here. But this was a very, very, very important event. And it's not just because U.S. citizens were killed, but the way that Trump and Hegseth have decided to respond, which of course is to say with a mighty hand, according to CENTCOM, like more than 70 strikes or 70 targets hit with 100 strikes or whatever it is. And I just, there's no irony lost on the fact that Trump and Hegseth have basically taken a page right out of Bibi's playbook. And they're both saying, we will hunt down and kill anybody who, threatens American interests, all of our enemies, no matter where they've been hiding. I know I've heard these words before from somewhere. Can't put my finger on it. And yet, when they say it, it's completely okay, right? So when Israel goes into Qatar and makes the most surgical strike in Doha, literally a room in a building at a moment, and the whole world, the UN, everyone explodes in condemnation that this is somehow an attack on a sovereign nation, and America is now going to defend Qatar from Israeli aggression and all the things. But it's fine that U.S. sees this unbelievable threat in Syria that they feel like we feel America is completely okay going in and bombing the crap out of them. But Israel is not supposed to retaliate against the terrorists that are directly on their borders. Listen, I'm not saying this to condemn American actions. I'm saying this to condemn the inherent hypocrisy that follows all of this. And just curious, Hamas killed on 10/7 46 Americans and kidnapped 12 others. So is America going to hunt and kill those leaders wherever they are? For example, Qatar and Turkey? Like, the hypocrisy doesn't end, and it's time for the world to wake up and allow Israel to fight the terror on its borders, just like the rest of the world is allowed to fight the terror that is nowhere near its borders. Did I mention that I'm angry now?
Yeah, there you go. You got yourself all fired up again. But no, I like it. But this is a long-standing debate in terms of the way the Americans carry on. Like even under Obama, when they were using drone strikes, there's two reasons a state can go to war under international law. Only two. One is self-defense. And even preemptive self-defense has some really, really strict rules about it. And you can look up the Caroline case, but it basically has to be absolutely like imminent. They're gonna hit me now if I don't fire first. Really, really stringent. So self-defense is one, and then the second one is if you're invited in by another country. That's it. So when we look at things like the extrajudicial drone strikes, legally, they probably are illegal if I'm honest. But nobody cares because international law only applies in as much as it can be enforced. And it has to be applied with, there's the great unspoken kind of pact about international law that it only matters if you follow it. There's very, very little accountability out there, particularly if you're the USA. Mm-hmm. You can basically do what you want. Nobody's going to call you out on it. Nobody's going to hold you to account. Nobody's going to put you in court because you're just sanctioned. Like if you're the USA, you can basically do whatever you want. It's only smaller countries that people really try and hold accountable. And with Israel, it's this on steroids, unfortunately. For all the obvious reasons that we know. It's a horrible double standard. But to look kind of tactically at where we are in Syria, it might be worth just giving a little round the houses as to the shenanigans that's going on. So Syria, obviously, we had the Assad regime collapsed, mainly due to the collapse of Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Syrian Lebanese Hezbollah fighters saw what was happening in Lebanon with the IDF and bugged out. All of a sudden, Assad doesn't have the same forces. Hezbollah guys were some of his best fighters. They're now gone. All of a sudden, HTS, who'd been running the sort of northwest area of Syria, all of a sudden they have a free run at Damascus. Damascus falls, boom, there. Now you've got al-Shara in charge, or al-Jalani, or whatever we're calling him today. So HTS come from a long line of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. They've been intermittently allies with Turkey. They're not Turkey's best mates, but they've certainly been pally with them at certain times. They were doing an okay job, actually, of running that little northwest area. They had, they were still a bit criminally and a bit terroristy, but not as criminally and terroristy as the rest of, as the rest of the country. So they were seen very much as the best of a very, very bad bunch. So that's HTS. But you've also got a bunch of other groups. So you've got Rojava as the area. That's the autonomous. It's AANES. It's autonomous area of northeast and something Syria. I forget, but Rojava is what the common shorthand for it is, and that's the Kurdish area. Now that's all along the north. They've been scrapping endlessly with a group called the SNA, Syrian National Army, and that is the Turkish lot. They are bad bastards. A lot of them have got some really ropey backgrounds, and they are essentially Turkey's proxy force in northern Syria. And they've been hammering the Kurdish positions for a very long time, and haven't really had much of a pause. So that's the Turkish involvement. But what's really interesting is that you've got the ISIS camps up there. You've got hundreds, if not thousands, of ISIS fighters who are, penned up in there. And if they're somehow released, that could unleash a wave of ISIS sort of terror throughout the rest of Syria. Now, the other area, of course, is that southeast region, which is the bit that was formerly held by ISIS at the head of the Caliphate era. You getting me okay? I'm getting an unstable message. Is it coming through all right?
I'm getting a message that you're unstable. It froze for a second, but not the audio. So podcast people will be fine. Video people will be so sad because they'll miss all the great facial expressions.
Okay, fine. But we've got a whole area down in that southeast where kind of bandit territory. You've got obviously the rump of ISIS. They're all down there, and then you've got a bunch of other splinter groups. It's the old People's Front of Judea, Judean People's Front. They've got schism after schism after schism, and it's that area that's probably, I would assess, been pounded by the US Air Force over the last few days because that's the area they tend to occupy. And then finally, if we look to the southwest, you've got that sort of Sueda area. Now, there's all sorts going on in there, and it's a bit murky. So you've had some HTS connected massacres going on down there, just as we had up on the port area as well, which is against the Druze. Up against the Alawites in the northwest side, and then in the south you've got the Druze area. How much al-Sharaa had to do with that, we don't know. It's certainly affiliates of HTS. So it's one of two things. Either he knew about it and didn't stop it, or he hasn't got full control over all of his forces. There are certainly reports that there's Hamas training camps in that area as well. How much of that is true, I don't know. And again, it's all very murky in that area right now. But there's been a lot of people killed. A lot of very, very unpleasant 7th of October style massacres, all pretty awful. So yeah, that's Syria. It's what we've got, as I said, is the best of a very bad bunch in charge, which isn't saying much, but unfortunately, you have to work with what you've got, and there isn't an immediate, out of the box, perfect solution for Syria. And so what I think we've seen is an agreement, a sort of tripartite agreement from Jerusalem, Washington, and Damascus, where al-Sharaa plays nice with Israel. Israel gets to keep their buffer zone, which is now obviously a really important thing. They're doing that in Gaza, doing that in Lebanon. Buffer zones seem to be one of the key Israeli takeaways from 7th of October. So played nice with Israel there, and in exchange, the Americans will lift all of the sanctions on Syria, which I think they've now done. And that means that al-Sharaa and his bunch get a bunch of money from the US and other places. So it's a kind of three-way, uneasy, kind of semi-pact to try and keep Syria as stable as he possibly can. Bearing in mind it is basically a jihadi basket case waiting to happen. So anything you can do to try and get ahead of that is a good thing. So that's the kind of Syria roundup from my perspective.
Thank you for Syria roundup. Let's square the circle. So yesterday, and you pointed this out to me, so I'm going to go ahead and steal this point from you because then I looked it up, was that you said there's a new map. I didn't realize it was a Syrian map that was put out that has Golan under Israeli control. This was massive. This sort of reminds me of how the UN will secretly set out a report saying there's no famine in Gaza. And then the next headline is huge famine in Gaza. Never mind the report that whatever. So basically, for those who don't know, the Golan Heights have been an area of contention for a long time. Even though Syria are rogue terrorists, the UN, of course, has been fighting for Israel to give up control of the Golan to the Syrians because they are obviously a much more rational actor. But what's interesting? Okay, so Syria put out these new maps yesterday. It does not have Golan as part of Syria. But very, very recently, these reports change from day to day, but I would say as recently as a few days or a week ago, al-Sharaa said that one of his demands in order to normalize with Israel was that they would have to cede the Golan. So here's what's interesting, going back to what you just said about the sanctions. First of all, I don't know. As I've said before, I am not the greatest deal maker in the world. When I bought my first car, my first dream car, I literally went in and said, I will pay you extra. I want this. My dad was like, no, she doesn't mean that. That's how I negotiate. So don't take this from me. But I do believe that if you were a better deal maker than, say, I, and claim to be the best deal maker in the world, you would put conditions upon huge concessions, such as, do you really have to lift every single sanction on Syria in order to prove that you are acting in good faith? To me, it seemed a little premature, very premature. But here's the thing. Obviously, Israel was opposed. They did not want all these sanctions to be lifted without conditions, just like Israel does not want Trump to give F-35s to Saudi Arabia without normalization conditions. Israel has way more at stake in this than America does. But here's the thing. Despite Bibi's urgings, and I do believe that for Bibi are coordinated in basically everything. Trump
Really not.
I know. Trump did decide that he was going to lift all the sanctions regardless, right? But he promised Israel some quote unquote compensation. So I'm wondering if this map that just sort of like, oh, by the way, the Golan is no longer ours, or at least according to this map that we put out, this is controlled by Israel. I'm wondering if that was the compensation that Israel got in return for Trump being able to lift all sanctions on Syria. Big mistake.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can see what Trump's doing. Look at, just work your way around the Gulf. Qatar, there you go. You get a defense pact. You get to train your F-35 pilots in the US. You get to become a major non-NATO ally. You get your standing boosted in the Gulf. Turkey, you get F-35s. Bibi, you get me writing to the president saying, stop the trial. You can, we'll give you, Golan potentially, and Syria, you get your sanctions lifted. You can just see this is Trump's transactional approach to foreign affairs, where he just tries to buy people off to keep the peace. I mean, obviously it doesn't work because people will just go, oh, thank you, take it, give it a bit of time, and then go back to what they were doing anyway. So it's a deeply stupid way of doing foreign affairs, but, it's keeping things quiet for at least the next 12 months. But look, also, I think with Golan, it is interesting. I think it very often with al-Shara depends on who he's talking to, what he says. This is very common in the Arab world anyway. They'll tailor what they're saying to whoever they're talking to. Because of course, al-Jolani, like that means the Golani. That's literally what it means. It's his nom de guerre is al-Jolani. His real name is al-Shara. He took his nom de guerre. Basically, it was taken based on Israeli occupation of the Golan Heights. So, he's not going to, he's not going to be in his heart delighted with this. But actually, if you're him and you're sat there, you're like, cool, I can play the long game here. We can deal with the Israelis further down the line. What's important to me right now is consolidating my position in charge of Syria, and that means I need money. And if Donald Trump is going to give me all this money, then okay, I'll play nice. So I can absolutely see that. And also, he's been on his stick on a suit, go around the capital cities of Europe. He's been drumming up trade, drumming up investment, drumming up aid. So, you can see the game that both sides are playing here. It seems fairly clear to me where we're going with this. But as I wrote in the Substack piece I pushed out today, this isn't a long-term piece. It's a kind of negotiated transactional pause at best. In countries like Syria, and then at worst it's like Lebanon, where they're just going to have to just keep hitting as and when Hezbollah or indeed Hamas in Gaza or the Houthis, as and when they show the intent and capability and an opportunity, then the Israelis will hit them. And I think that's what the future looks like going forward for the next God knows how long.
I absolutely agree that that is the future. It's just a question of how permissive will the world be of that. I mean, it's funny, Andrew. When I heard about the Trump plan, now I'm going off topic. When I heard about the Trump plan initially, I'm like, God, this is brilliant. This is just gonna. And then when I saw it again this week, like an actual, like, and we're gonna invest all this money and we're gonna create, Gaza Wonderland. I actually had to sort of laugh out loud because, first of all, the whole thing's going to be blown up. I mean, there's no doubt that Hamas is going to set up in the casinos and in the spas and in the whole thing is going to be destroyed. And by the way, are they even going to like go through the effort of destroying the tunnels first? I don't know. But first of all, it's never going to happen. Nobody is going to do it because nobody is willing to disarm Hamas. And if Israel is left to disarm Hamas, then they're going to be completely eviscerated for it. And if it doesn't happen before Trump leaves office, then what? Then we wind up right back with just the asshole dumpster fire that Gaza is. This whole Mira Gaza thing that was, I guess, a mirage from the beginning. It sounded very promising. It's just that here comes the sun. It just seems like I'm going to figure this out. I thought because it was an hour later that the sun would not catch up with me. Anyway, the whole thing just gets more and more ludicrous. And as you said, there is no peace in Gaza. I think that had the whole world really gotten on board the way that they said they were going to get on board, there could have been a chance at making this happen. But now that like the IS app is basically all the people who have volunteered, everybody's lining up because they want to be a part of the IS app. It's basically Turkey. And Israel does not want Turkey for obvious reasons on its border. And so what's changed? What's changed? Who the heck is going to invest in the Gaza Strip? I'm trying to think of a funny way to say Gaza Strip that parallels like the Strip here in Las Vegas, but I realize that Gaza already has the word Strip in it, so I haven't thought of that moniker yet.
Welcome to fabulous Gaza. No, Viva Las Tunnels. I mean, I don't know. But look, you've got a strange old beast right now because I think everyone's just worked Trump out. They've gone, okay, so what I'll do is I'll promise him what he wants. He'll give me stuff. And then when his mind is on something else, like Venezuela, I'll just row back on my promise. And I've still got the stuff that Trump gave me. So that's pretty cool. And, and Trump just gets his, it's all about him. It's all about having a ceasefire deal to trump it. And, he got the hostages out. Fantastic. The idea that anything else in that plan was in any way workable, it's just a nonsense. And, I proposed a bit of a way forward in my article today where, I talked about, start some rebuilding in the eastern half of Gaza, but who's going to live there? Maybe the 2,000 Gazans who are actually in that eastern half. Are people going to be allowed to leave the western half and cross the yellow line? Who knows? Would the IDF let them? Probably not at the moment. Will Hamas let them? They don't have a great track record in letting people move from A to B. They did their very best to stop people evacuating after IDF warnings during the war. So there's so much up in the open, and the sheer cost of rebuilding is mind blowing, like trillions potentially. It's so smashed up, and then you have the underground infrastructure to worry about as well. I mean, who's paying for this? I mean, they're making Israel pay for the clearance of the rubble in Rafah right now. That's not sustainable. Israel can't spend all that money. The UAE have now pulled out from funding it, which is interesting in and of itself. So who's going to do it? China? Qatar? Who knows?
Andrew, so let's say it happens. Let's say this all Christopher Mission, they have this beautiful resort AI. I don't even know what AI means. I mean, I know what AI means, but there's some big AI element to that, and it's got all the things and the glitz and the shows and the showgirls and all the things. Andrew, next time that you are planning your next fabulous vacation and you're going to choose between the Riviera, the Bahamas, Hawaii, and the fabulous Gaza Strip, which one are you going to go to? I mean, honestly, even if they do the things, who is going to go there? Now, to your other point, however, we talked before about this Disneyland strategy of if everything is amazing outside of the yellow line and we have this hornet's nest inside the yellow line, and the people are like, wait. I'm still sitting in a tent in rubble, and right there's Gazaland. Okay, you could say that Hamas will not let them out. And I'm going to agree with you that they'll do everything they can to maintain control over this population, which ironically, now that they have control over 95% of the population in a more condensed setting, I don't see what they've lost in this process. However, I think that just like with Iran, we are going to have to depend on the people themselves to save themselves. If they are festering in rubble and seeing that everything is being built outside and they want a better life for themselves, they're going to have to step up. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's happened many times throughout history. The people of Gaza, if they actually do care about life and not just death, as they say they do, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say there must be some of them who care about life, then they are going to have to rise up and take care of themselves and overthrow Hamas in and of themselves. I really believe that has to happen.
And it's whether they have the capability to do that is the question. I guess that's probably where, if I were Israel, I'd be putting my efforts right now. But it's not an easy solution. It's not a quick solution. It's not a guaranteed solution. It's just a mess, frankly. But because, there's even issues of land rights. So say you're going to start building in East Gaza, who owns the buildings that you're bulldozing and then building on top of? This is a recipe for court cases forever, because you build a new casino on spot A and it crosses over onto the land that was owned by Ahmed and his family for decades. It's carnage. I'm so glad I'm nowhere near Kiryat Gat and that planning center, because it just looks like an impossible task to me. I still think the most sensible thing is just to build a wall of steel around the place and let them crack on, and then drop bombs and see them building terror infrastructure. That just still seems like the most obvious solution to me.
Serious question, though. You're saying there would be all these lawsuits. It makes sense in Britain or in Los Angeles, but what court would be upholding those land rights?
Well, whichever court was brought into Gaza based on the Gazan legal system, which currently is Hamas. So, like I said, it's just every time you think you get round the corner of a problem, there's another 20 problems in front of you. So mind-blowingly challenging to fix this now. And yeah, to be honest, the sensible thing is probably moving everyone out and then letting them come back later on, as Trump suggested. But again, that's not going to happen. Because it's the Arab world and other players in the West need Gazans there as a symbol that Israel can't have it all their own way, and it's just not going to happen politically. So yeah, there's no easy or simple or straightforward or quick solution. It's just going to drag on. It's going to drag on and on and on.
And the other thing is that nothing can be done on top until all the tunnels are destroyed below. That's going to be a monumental effort in and of itself. So, yeah, it does seem like an untenable quagmire, but at the same time, I do believe wherever there's a problem, there is a solution. I know there's a lot of great minds working on it, and it might take hundreds or thousands of years, but eventually, hopefully it will sort itself out. I mean, I've been going back and forth with some of my sort of more theologically inclined friends about can Islam reform the way that the Christians did? I mean, they're not, Christians are not still executing crusades, for example. But a lot of people are saying, no, they can't. But it's true. They're stuck in this 7th century, I don't know, madness. And I'm hoping that there's a way that they can evolve. And if so...
Yeah, but also it's worth saying there have been some pretty benign Muslim states in history, like Bosnia or whatever back in the day. There's plenty of examples, and you can look at the UAE and Saudi now, who are going towards a positive direction. And actually, you can look at Turkey under Kemal Ataturk, and the way that played out. And there's this really interesting pathway that goes is that Islam goes to liberal,
Mm-hmm.
then overcorrects the other way, which is really interesting. But look, you've got Christian nationalists running around the United States. You had the Hitler Youth Camp, or whatever it was called, at the weekend. And frankly, America's not looking much better right now in terms of religious extremism. I saw you wrote about that in your article. That Christian, I can't do it. It's got to have it. It's Christian nationalism. There's nothing Christian about them. It's a perversion of the faith, quite frankly. I think
that
that's an overcorrection as well. It's a bad direction.
I think that any time that somebody uses religion as an excuse for demonizing others, they've gone in the wrong direction. I really truly believe that. It's something I'm grappling with a lot in understanding, particularly. I hate to say it with my my Christian allies who I respect so deeply and are featured in. I'm talking about like Christian, hardcore Christian, but then also on their own shows talk about how, the only way a Jew is going to save themselves is by accepting Christ in their hearts. And at the same time, I'm just like, but I don't understand like how that's accepting me for being a Jew. I accept you for being a Christian. I accept you. I really do. I accept people for being Muslim. I accept people for being Buddhist. I don't have a problem with any of these things. But I do worry about this religious fundamentalism. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist on some level in Judaism for bad reasons, particularly what we've seen in some of the Judea and Samaria attacks. But at the same time, I've never seen a Jew telling other people they have to become Jewish. And I think that that's just a matter of respect, to be honest. But sorry, that's a total.
I did have some dude at the Western Wall try and persuade me to make Aliyah, and it got all a bit awkward when I explained that I wasn't Jewish, and he was very very frowning.
Well, you don't have to be Jewish to make Aliyah, and maybe you should.
We've had that conversation. It ain't happening.
Yeah. So another thing that happened in this last week that was again, like I don't know. After Trump came into power, I was really hoping that we wouldn't have so much of this mealy mouth, like, how Kamala Harris was always like, yeah, no, you have very valid arguments, and where they're not giving enough aid, and they're, and really, really validating all the lies that have been levied against Israel. But this last week, Israel did a targeted assassination of a senior commander, Rod Saad. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Do you want to correct that?
No, I just want to go with your version.
Oh, okay. Rad Sad. It's ironic because
you see those apostrophes when they write Arabic and English. If you apostrophes, it's like a glottal stop. It's like don't bother. It sounds awful.
No, you do it.
Ugly language. No, it's an ugly language. I much prefer Rad Saad. Let's do it.
Okay. So Rod Saad, that again, like he's probably not as good a singer if I were to go out on a limb and bet. But the fact that the U.S. is like, yeah, we're going to investigate whether this was, a ceasefire violation. But again, let's just go back. That Israel, that America did 70 strikes because one ISIS guy killed 3 people. But Israel, again, is not supposed to have a very targeted assassination of an actual senior commander in Hamas, because at this point, let's remember that phase 2 and 3, do say that Hamas is going to be demilitarized and taken out of power. So why the hell are we protecting their right to exist or Israel not to attack?
The difference is this. It's that Donald Trump does not have his laurels resting on a ceasefire in Syria. Okay, the whole point of this is Trump and having his ceasefire, and he's not in lockstep with Bibi. He tells Bibi what to do. Think back to the Iran strikes when Israel were going to launch another round, and he was like, "They don't know what they're fucking doing." You know, Bibi does what he's told by Trump. They're not in lockstep. The reason the ceasefire happened is because Trump lost his shit over the Qatar strike, banged Bibi's head, and said, "Right, that's enough. Qatar, here's a load of money. Release the hostages. Any questions? No. Bibi, stop. Any questions? No. Right, I've got a ceasefire. I'm Donald Trump, the peacemaker." That's what happened. There's no real evidence to suggest that they coordinated this whole thing together. There just isn't there. All the bits around this, you know, even down to Witkoff and Kushner saying they felt betrayed by Israel over the Qatar strike, the Doha strike. You know, everything around that suggests that this is Bibi doing as he's damn well told. And the fact is that if Bibi wants to strike Iran, he's going to have to ask Trump's permission. And even yesterday, they were reporting that Trump was saying he wasn't going to give permission for that. He was asked in a press conference. So look, that's the bottom line here. And that's why Israel needs strategic autonomy, because there's going to come a point when someone like J.D. Vance is in the White House or a Democrat, and Israel is all of a sudden going to lose Washington in the way that Europe has just discovered Washington is no longer reliable. And that is painful and expensive when it comes at you fast. Like, we can see this coming now. Israel needs to get ready for this. And you know, because 1967, there was an American arms embargo on Israel. 1948, the same. You know, Israel has been strategically autonomous before. And that doesn't mean just going it alone completely. It means having allies, but it means not being utterly reliant on one partner, which is where they are at the moment. So that's why when Israel drops a bomb in Gaza, Trump really cares about it, because he has staked his reputation on his masterful ceasefire deal making, even though it's not a ceasefire and never has been. It's just a hostage release deal.
But if he's... I'm tired.
Upset. That's why.
Okay, fair enough. Here's the sun.
He's talking again.
Okay, fine. Nonetheless, I'm so tired of Israel being blamed for all ceasefire breaches. Never mind that Hamas still has a hostage. Having the hostage in the first place is a breach. Never mind that it's also a breach of the first phase. Also, the dozens of Hamas rats that have come out of the tunnels, those are also each one like a ceasefire breach. Why aren't we talking about them? I'm tired of everything coming down as Israel. On Israel. I understand that they're the rational actor here, but we need to give credit where credit is due. Israel has got to be allowed to destroy the terrorists at its gates. It's just hard stop. But
I've got one more point, if I may, very quickly.
Yes.
And I might have just forgotten it, so I read a comment when I was thinking about it. You were talking about Israel, ceasefire, bombs. Yes. So Israel missing a trick here, because look, I've spoken to IDF soldiers. I know Hamas are still sniping at them. Hamas are still, trying to take opportunities where they can. We've seen RPGs fired. Like, there's cameras all over that place. Like, get the footage out. Like, don't just say, "Oh, they fired at us. Now we're throwing a squadron of tanks over the border and we're going to smash them up," which is what they are doing, and that's fine by my book. That's what I'd do as well. But like, get the footage of Hamas firing RPGs, of Hamas firing sniper rounds. Show the images of dudes popping out of tunnels and taking up firing positions to attack IDF positions on the yellow line. There's just no kind of, come on, like, give us something here. It's been the same for 2 years, and I'm not expecting anything different. But it's still a relentless frustration. And I was speaking to an Australian friend of mine, Erin. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Erin, you have a laugh.
But yeah, we were chatting the other night, and we both said, we were having events and just like agreed. It's just this relentless frustration that you're trying to get stuff out of the Israelis to kind of help put the fair side across, because it's happened. this ceasefire breach, say the sniper shot from Hamas has happened. But I've spoken to low-level people on the ground who tell me. But you go to the higher headquarters and you're like, hey, can you give me anything to substantiate what I'm being told by your troops on the ground? And they're just like, radio silence. Now, she goes in a fair bit higher up the chain than me, but it's the same deal. And it's just like Israel's still not fighting this information war after nearly 2 and a bit years. And it's just intensely frustrating.
So I fully understand why they were reluctant to release some of the October 7th footage in respect for the victims and their families. Sure. But have they given you or any sort of rationale for not releasing? I have to be honest, Andrew, like sometimes like I'll see the videos and they're like, look at this proves this, that. And I'm like, what am I looking at?
Yeah, that's part of the difficulty, yeah.
Yeah, so they're cameras, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the footage is discernible or incriminating if people don't have the context. And then they start putting in the context and everybody's like, oh, well, everything is fake. Everything is AI, everything. Like, who even cares anymore? We can say whatever we want. I was thinking, Andrew, that on the show we could start we could just start making up facts and then everybody can repeat them and we could change the world narrative. Want to start now?
54 people. Let's do it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. Phase 2, it is never going to happen. It never was going to happen. I don't think anybody ever thought it was going to happen. Israel has released information that they not only know where Ron Gavili's body is, but they know who knows where Ron Gavili's body is in Hamas or PIJ. I just sort of feel like, okay, well, now let's focus on Bondi and forget about Ron. And sometimes I feel like they're creating these diversions so that this last hostage can be held as this just diabolical token in order to not fulfill their obligations. But I also hear that, like, in order to go to phase 2, Trump is again talking about, well, Israel's going to have to make some concessions. I'm like, okay, but what about the paper, the plan, that we actually signed? Does that matter? Why are we changing what we already signed?
It was just a headline and Hamas were never going to stick to it. And we all knew that. Turkey, and don't forget, Witkoff's still shuttling between Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar, and they're dripping their poison. And someone put a great meme about Tucker Carlson with JD Vance being, I don't know if you've seen The Lord of the Rings, got King Theoden, and what was his little Wormtongue, Grima Wormtongue, going, he's not the real friend, and that's exactly what you got. But this is with Qatar and Turkey, just dripping poison into Witkoff's ear, who's dripping the poison to Trump's ear. And you can see that America is starting to internalize the Qatari-Turkish narrative. And again, I wrote about it today. Please go read that article. It is a good one.
Yeah, wait to read it.
But that's the situation. Unfortunately, Israel is not America's best buddy in the Gulf. Everyone is now a transaction for Mr. Trump, and it's what he can get out of it.
Okay, and then what happens after Mr. Trump, Andrew? Like, does Israel revert to its original standing as BFF in the ME, or does everything fall to?
The point is, we don't know, and that's why the clock is ticking, and why Israel needs to recover strategic autonomy.
Yeah,
it's too that Trump has just torn up the world security order. The after effects are going to be hitting us on this for years, both in Europe, South America, and the Gulf. And ultimately, we don't know what's coming after him. So for example, I think it's a fair bet to say he's going to be smashed up in the midterms. That means that he's almost certainly going to get impeached again. What if it's successful this time? Then all of a sudden we've got President Vance, haven't we? If Trump's impeached successfully, that changes the game. If we get a Democrat winning in 28, that changes the game, and we don't know which way it's going to go. So if I'm Israel, I'm sat in Jerusalem, I'm thinking about Israel's defenses, and like strategic autonomy is number one go. and that's not going to be cheap or easy either. But certainly they need to take strides towards that, and with rebuilding their reputation and alliances in the West generally, because those German arms are going to be a lot more useful in the years to come.
Well, the diplomatic and political ramifications, I think, are as important as the defensive. But I also think that Israel has got to start creating bilateral agreements that say, if you want our stuff, you show up for us. You vote with us in the United Nations. You stop backstabbing us. Don't tell me that you want our defense systems and then vote against us in the United Nations when we're fighting an existential battle. Like, this has got to stop. The world that takes advantage of their economic opportunities with Israel, I'll lump in there everyone in the Abraham Accords, has got to start stepping up for Israel. And especially if America stands down and we don't have that veto in the Security Council anymore, I don't know, Andrew. I don't see like how even military, other than going completely rogue, military independence is going to solve that problem. So let's just hope that because of this pendulum, that somehow in the next few years, some sort of sanity regarding the Middle East is restored in the Democratic Party. I'm not holding my breath. I know, of course, Rahm Emanuel would be, I think, you don't know anything anymore, would be a friend of Israel, should he get the Democratic nod, maybe even more so than Vance. I mean, here's the thing that I was thinking, Andrew. You know how everybody said that Biden was just Obama 3? Like, come on, let's be honest. I don't think that Vance will be anything other than Trump 3. I think that he will still be under Trump.
Oh, no, he'll be far worse. He'll be far, far worse.
No. I don't mean better or worse. What I mean is, you don't think he'll still be under Trumpian influence?
No, I think he'll be under the influence of those really unpleasant little factions that are seeming to pop up now. The Tucker Carlson piece, it's bad. President Vance is a disaster. Think of him as the Stalin to Trump's Lenin, I think is the way I would put it.
Okay.
Much more organized, much more intelligent, much more ideologically driven. Vance is really, really bad news.
I want to be clear that I definitely think Vance is bad news. In fact, I had it out with Thane Rosenbaum on my Yoga War show right after the Turning Point event at Ole Miss, and he sort of put me in my place, and I'm like, I don't think I'm wrong about this, and this was a few months ago, and boy, has that fire just really blown up in the last few months. I was really astounded, to be honest. I know you have to go. I have to go. Everyone has to go. But I was really astounded that Tucker Carlson was invited to speak at Turning Point. I mean, what a disgrace.
Well, they even let in Myron Gaines. I mean, wearing his Holocaust hoodie. Like, this is the level of these people. Thank God, Ben Shapiro did really well. But he needs to go further and split away from that movement, because they're just fascists. I'm sorry, that's all they are. But like traditional, not like in the sense that everything I don't like is fascist. They're literally just fascists. And I'm sorry, like, yeah, they're hateful people. And this, I hate the left for stealing that word, because it's an important word and you need it, because now we've got nothing that we can label these people when this is literally in front of us. But it's just fascism of the old 1920s Italian kind, even down to trying to, there's even a parallel with Italy going into Ethiopia, with what they're doing in South America at the moment. It's all there. It's all there. And again, I've written about that, and if you don't believe me, go read the article on my Substack. But yeah, right, we need to wrap it up there. I've got
history rhymes.
It always
I
first time is tragedy, second time is a farce, which I think is where we are right there.
I do want to say that everybody should read Andrew's article on fascism, because it really opened my eyes to a lot of points that I didn't fully understand also, and imagine that there was something I didn't understand. That being said, before we finish, I have to say my weekly thing. Bondi was a horror. that has, for very good reason, dominated all of our thoughts and all of our feeds. Please, though, do not forget Ron Gavili in your prayers, okay? I have to say that putting on a ribbon every day, so whether it's a tag, whether it's a ribbon, whatever it is, not only tells the world that we won't rest until he's home, but it's also going to remind you every day that we have to get our last hero home. And it's very easy to forget something like a murdered person that is whose body has been desecrated and is rotting in Gaza, which is sad and sick. But if we don't remind ourselves every single day of this, he will be forgotten. And I don't want to see him there for 11 years like Hadar Golden. So please wear your ribbons, call your leaders, post online, do whatever you can. I want to see Ron home. I hope we all want to see Ron home.
Duly seconded. But thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, then please do the old subscribey, clicky, likey thing. I'm grateful for when you do that. If you're watching this anywhere else, please leave us some comments because we really love to hear from you and hear what you think. But yeah.
Next week, Andrew? Next week in Jerusalem.
Oh, no, next week we're having a day off. It's the week after we're in Jerusalem, isn't it?
Yeah, well, are we going to take the whole week off? That's fair. I'm flying that night, but okay. Whatever it is, next time you guys see us, we will be together in Israel, clinking glasses, doing our l'chaims. Until then, l'chaim.
Cheers.
Okay, cheers. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. All the things. Okay.
Happy holidays. There you go.
All the holidays. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.